he wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends.
You've got Ramaswamy who wants to cut aid to Israel. He doesn't understand that it's not that America needs Israel. It's not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. They're the front line of defense for Iran. You can't be so narcissistic to think America doesn't need allies. We do need allies. He's the one that said he was going to abandon Israel. Those were his words. Now he's wanting to walk it back. And the reality is you have to understand the importance of our allies and those relationships. We can never be so narcissistic to think that we don't need friends.
Will you stand with Israel in spite of what other nations do?
Yes, and the reason I stand with Israel, I want to be very clear about this. There's many different bases, right? I have no personal, lineage ties or anything like this to Israel. The reason I stand with Israel is because it's the right thing to do for America, actually. So here's how I want to actually see our Israel policy progress. I think one of the great accomplishments of Trump's foreign policy was the Abraham Accords. A belief that we did not have to hold an entire region and a nation hostage over settling one complicated old score in Palestine. To say that we can move forward and reintegrate Israel into other would-be friendly nations in the Middle East without having to settle completely that old score, that we could still move forward on the other fronts. So my top goal, and I think I can deliver this in my first year in office, is Abraham Accords 2.0. Let's get Saudi Arabia, let's get Oman, Qatar, Indonesia in there. This propels Israel forward. And so then we might get to a place where by 2028, when our current $30 billion commitment, $38 billion commitment, which I absolutely stand by and view as sacrosanct, we may be in a place where if we've really succeeded with Abraham Accords 2.0, we've long graduated from the needs of the past where the necessity of that support had to be what it was. And so that's really what I mean. When I say support Israel, I support Israel because it's in the American interest. And from Israel's perspective, that's a much stronger commitment than somebody that just happens to have a preference versus a nation that says, no, this is in our interest, actually, to make sure that we're getting the intelligence that we're getting. Many of those weapons that we've sent to Ukraine have ended up in the wrong hands. How do we know? It's actually because of Israeli intelligence. I think a lot of the technology transfer from the Iron Dome, this has been useful for missile defense in the United States. So when I say it's in our self-interest, I actually think that's actually also the strongest basis that's in Israel's self-interest too. And that gets to a broader vision of my foreign policy. I am a George Washington America First conservative. I don't listen to inauguration speeches. Like I said, 2024 isn't the start line for me. I pay attention to farewell speeches. Ronald Reagan's in 1989. Dwight D. Eisenhower's when he left office. George Washington's all-time best farewell speech, where he said that we would base our foreign policy based on what advances American interests. And so that's the prism through which I will view everything. I don't think we have independent humanitarian obligations. I think our best version of being a humanitarian in the world is actually by being strong at home. Because when America is strong, the rest of the free world still has hope that we are that shining city on a hill. But what hope does the rest of the world have if America itself is weak? And so that's the way I think about foreign policy, and that is why I come down strongly on the side of Israel rather than dignifying a lot of the nonsense that the Biden administration has been paying homage to in the last 2 years. Thank you for that question. I appreciate it.
This is from Make It Pop. In response to your defunding of organizations extraneous to the US, I expect, would you include Israel in this defunding tenure that you discussed with regard to the WHO? If you would end the war between Ukraine and Russia, or at least stop funding it, what would you do about America's ongoing funding of Israel?
Now, as that relates to Israel, my view is I ask the question, there's no North Star commitment to any one country other than the United States of America. So what advances American interests? I actually do think our relationship with Israel has advanced American interests. I come out on the side of that. Here's what I want to see happen, though. I want to negotiate. I'm a deal maker, okay? I want to negotiate now Abraham Accords 2.0. Get Saudi, Oman, Qatar, Indonesia in there. get Israel on its own 2 feet. And I believe in standing by commitments that we've already made. So our commitments have, I think, $38 billion in aid, military support, et cetera, going in through 2028. I want to get Israel to the place where it is negotiated back into the infrastructure of the rest of the Middle East. We should not be worried about holding one nation or one region hostage over one particular question relating to Palestine. Go to Abraham Accords 2.0. That's good for Israel. It's good for the rest of the Middle East. It's good for us, such that come 2028, that additional aid won't be necessary in order to still have the kind of stability that we'd actually have in the Middle East by having Israel more integrated in with its partners. And I think that the Trump administration took a first step, getting Bahrain and some other countries. I think we need Saudi. I think we need Oman, Qatar, Indonesia, and others in there. And then I think that puts us in a position, it's everybody's position, to say we don't have to meddle.
He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends.
So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles me is, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel
that is
needs
the answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay.
Israel came up also. You had a lot of backlash about the remarks that you said about cutting the military aid to Israel. Do you regret saying that?
Well, you know what's funny is I actually never said that. So the reality is, and I've learned about how partisan politics works. There's a lot of other professional politicians on the stage who know that my rise is going up. So they're thinking about what words they can put in my mouth. Here's actually what I said. What I said is, if our relationship with Israel ever gets Israel to the point of being so strong that Israel doesn't even need our aid anymore, that will actually be a mark of success of a true friendship. But to be clear, we would never cut off aid to Israel until Israel told us they were ready for it. The truth is this: the U.S.-Israel relationship will be stronger by the end of my first term than it has ever been in U.S. history, and than it ever will be under any of those other administrations if anybody else is elected. And here's why. I view it as a friendship, not a client transactional relationship, a friendship. And true friends help each other stand strong on their feet with fortitude. How would we do that? I want to lead Israel into Abraham Accords 2.0 in whatever way we can as the United States contribute to that diplomatically. Get Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Indonesia into that pact. I think the most anti-Semitic element of foreign policy has been to hold Israel hostage over the Palestine question and stop Israel from integrating itself into the security infrastructure and economic infrastructure of the Middle East and elsewhere. That needs to end.
You said aid to Israel, our number one ally, only democracy in the region, should end in 2028, and that they should be integrated with their neighbors. I have an exact quote. You want me to read it?
That's actually, I can tell you the exact quote. What I said is it would be a mark of success if we ever got to a point in our relationship with Israel, if Israel never needed the United States' aid. And Sean, you know how politics is played. A lot of the other professional politicians who have been threatened by my rise have used that statement to say that I would cut off aid to Israel. That's not correct.
You've got Ramaswamy who wants to cut aid to Israel from Hezbollah, from Iran, from Syria. You need a president that understands that understands that Israel is the front line of defense when it comes to us dealing with Islamic terrorism in Iran. And he just doesn't get it.
Do you understand the importance of the strategic alliance, the intelligence sharing in an area of the world where we have a lot of enemies, which, by the way, boggles my mind that we look for the lifeblood of our economy and the world's economy from that very same region of the world, when we have more natural resources here, which you agree. But you do understand how important that alliance is, and Sean, how important the intelligence factor is, and how important it is with Iran, especially seeking nukes.
I understand it, I think, more deeply than probably anybody in this race. I've traveled to Israel. I have business partners in Israel. The reality is this. By the end of my first term, our relationship with Israel will be stronger than it ever has been because I will treat it as a true friendship, not just a transactional relationship.
And why did you say that they shouldn't have preferential treatment? Why did you say that Israel should not have preferential treatment from us? That's a direct quote.
Sean, I understand. No, those are direct quotes from headlines summarized by opposition research fed to the fake news media. The reality is, here's what I've said is that, but Abraham Accords 2.0 is my top priority. Abraham Accords 2.0 is my top priority, which is to get Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar into that pact with Israel. And foremost, to have a partnership with Israel that does something really important for the U.S., which is to make sure that Iran never, ever, ever has nuclear capabilities. That's important to the United States. And the other thing I've said, Sean, is that Israel's our friend. Good friends learn from each other. I would love Israel's border policies in this country. I would love Israel's tough on crime policies and strong national identity in this country. I would love an iron dome like Israel has to defend itself against Hamas, which is a good thing for Israel. I want something like that here in the United States. So I don't read from the traditional GOP talking point binder that's handed to traditional candidates. That's true. That lends itself to being misquoted. But it's actually a much more authentic commitment to Israel on the substance than just checking off the talking point of saying that we stand with Israel. That's meaningless. I prefer substance, and that's exactly where I've gone in a lot of these long-form podcasts I've done.
Will you use military force to stop Iran? Because if you watch history, the only time they stopped the nuclear plan was during the Bush administration, because then they were afraid he's going to attack them. And
we will
no
not,
sanctions helped.
We will not stop Israel from defending itself to the fullest capacity. And we remain supportive of Israel because they are our friend. I think it's really important that the U.S. not put our own men and women on the line in a war with Iran when, in fact, there's no reason for us to be in that kind of war now. And I don't think that's good for the United States, and I don't think that's good for Israel. But what we do need to do is to make sure that Israel is strong so that Iran isn't emboldened. This is an Ayatollah in Iran that would rather Israel not exist. Let's just call that truth out for what it is. And so Israel needs to be in a strong position to defend itself, and the United States will be at Israel's back. But I think that that's a very different thing from automatically sleepwalking ourselves into war. I'm an anti-war president, and the way I'm going to do it is by deterring war, be it ending the war in Ukraine, be it deterring China. These are important elements of why I think it's important to be strong, but in a way that doesn't accidentally walk us into wars that we don't belong in.
Quick question before I let you go. You've been feuding with Vivek Ramaswamy about his military position when it comes to the United States versus Iran and a sort of future potential military conflict. Can you distill for us the heart of the difference between you and Ramaswamy?
I mean, look, he has shown that he's naive. The idea that he doesn't think we need to continue to partner with Israel, the idea that now he's saying that we shouldn't worry about Iran getting a nuclear bomb and we shouldn't defend ourselves against Iran. And no one understands that. And it's naive to say, oh, we're going to go to Russia and tell them you quit playing with China. It's just not accurate. And I'm always going to take the side of Israel. I'm always going to take the side of us being strong when it comes against a terrorist group that says death to America. He's completely wrong on this, and the American people see that.